Welcome to the Z Standing Ready channel. The phenomenon of society's loss of individuality, sometimes called the loss of self-identity, is a complex and multifaceted issue that invites discussion from philosophical, psychological, and sociological perspectives. There is not one simple cause. Long gone are the days of the rugged individual, often portrayed in the movies by people like John Wayne and Steve McQueen, who relied only on their ability to think for themselves as individuals in the movie roles they played, and were able to focus on what was truly important, like honor and accountability. Those days, sadly, are long gone. In this video, I will explore how the standardization of education, the influence of mass media, and the homogenization of culture, and most importantly, the pressures of conformity contribute to the erosion of individual uniqueness, honor, and accountability. It all starts with the standardization of the U.S. education system from K-1 and up. This change to the standardized testing came about in our school system by the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. The modern educational system is rightly criticized for its focus on standardized testing and one-size-fits-all curricula, which can stifle creativity and discourage critical thinking. This system tends to reward rote memorization and penalize divergence, leading to generations of students who are adept at regurgitating information but less able to formulate original individual ideas or cultivate morals such as honor, accountability, and responsibility. Individual learning styles and interests are often sidelined in favor of achieving uniform scholastic benchmarks, which can dampen a student's unique intellectual and creative abilities. However, in addition, a second troubling scenario is taking place in our educational settings. It is more troubling than a dystopian nightmare. The specific issue is the repugnant manifestation of the intolerance in the educational system, literally banning, physically harming, or threatening anyone from sharing their honest thoughts on a variety of cultural or political topics that go counter to the school's ideas and beliefs. This mindset is contrary to the First Amendment of our Constitution, which is now the crumbling foundation that American society was built upon. Guest speakers at schools, invited by student organizations, or even the school's own salaried staff, are often banned or terminated if they offer any idea or thought that runs counter or in opposition to the school's administration-approved message or dogma. This myopic mindset, instilled in the pupils at a very early age, and carried forward even to a student's university years, is often characterized by a rigid and narrow, unwavering opinion held by many of the teachers, students, and the school's administrators that relentlessly compel other students who may disagree and force them to fall in line with the approved dogma, or face dire consequences, such as being shamed, physically assaulted, ostracized, and ridiculed. And this is just to name a few of the consequences faced by individuals who may be able to form and try and express an individual thought, idea, or belief. Because of this rigid, one-sided mindset, many students are inhibited or afraid to express individual thoughts that run counter to the institutions. It is easier just to agree and not think, or to keep quiet rather than dissent. Ironically, schools are the environments where free speech and thinking should be encouraged and nurtured. But in fact, the exact opposite is taking place because of cognitive bias and the refusal to allow contrary viewpoints to be presented. Then we have the influence of the mass media. The mass media, with its pervasive presence bombarding us literally 24/7 with propaganda, plays a significant role in shaping societal norms and expectations. Advertising, television, and now social media platforms present a narrow spectrum of lifestyles, beauty standards, and success definitions, often promoting materialism and consumerism. The bombardment of these homogenized messages can lead individuals to subconsciously align their values and aspirations with those depicted in the media, rather than developing and following their own personal ideologies and goals. This is a cultural phenomenon, and anyone thinking counter to society's herd mindset is shunned, shamed, or bullied. If, for example, school children do not buy clothing from the acceptable cool store or have the latest iPhone, they are punished and ostracized for not complying and joining the mindless herd of their thoughtless and simple-minded peers. Also, there's globalization that contributes to the decline of personal individualism. While having numerous benefits, globalization has also contributed to the homogenization of cultures and ignores people with individual personalities. As businesses expand and cultural products are disseminated worldwide, local customs and traditions can be diluted or forgotten. The ubiquity of certain fast food chains, fashion brands, and entertainment formats embedded across the globe leads to a blandness where local unique establishments are overshadowed by a monolithic global culture. This can result in a loss of cultural identity and personal distinctiveness. And then there is the strong and ever-present pressure of conformity. Human beings are inherently social creatures, and the desire to belong can sometimes overpower the individual's ability to stand out. The pressure to conform can come from various sources: peers, family, professional circles, and society at large. People may find themselves altering their behavior, opinions, and even their appearance to fit into a group, fearing the thought of being ostracized or criticized if they do not conform or comply with the group's mentality. This pressure can be especially intense in the formative years of adolescence, but can and does persist well into adulthood at the expense of one's individuality. And then there is also the age of the Internet, a paradoxical situation where the Internet's platform could offer endless possibilities for self-expression on the one hand, but on the other hand also creates a space for comparison and uniformity. It's worth repeating. It is a unique paradox that started with the advent of the Internet, a phenomenon that we have never in the history of mankind ever experienced before. The absence of free speech and individual thought in the home of the World Wide Web will go down in the historical records as one of the 21st century's most troubling, problematic issues. Social media, for instance, for the positive, allows for the sharing of personal stories and the formation of communities that celebrate unique identities. However, it also negatively, to our detriment, fosters an environment where the number of likes or followers on social media can dictate one's self-worth, leading to the emulation of trends and personalities rather than fostering true individual expression or thought. Never in the history of mankind has there ever been a great leap forward that was accomplished by consensus, committee, or complying with the herd mentality. It has always been the individual who challenged the consensus by literally sticking their necks out, sometimes facing death as a punishment for their unique ideas. There were, and are now in this day and age, dire consequences for those whose only crime was for thinking counter to the group's consensus. The individual's only indiscretion was offering a so-called radical new explanation or perspective to the prevailing thought or consensus. Some of these unique or differing theories or ideas are oftentimes conveniently labeled as conspiracy theories, and thus must be ignored or ridiculed by the human herd's cultural bias. It goes without saying that we now know some of these various conspiracy theories were in fact proven true when the truth eventually was revealed. Progress is thwarted or stalled by punishing those who think differently. and thus we are pressured to keep our thoughts to ourselves. After all, these thoughts may offend someone. God forbid. But just because an individual or group is offended does not make them right, regardless of their conviction. Our failure is that there is just not much incentive for using mindful effort to think counter to the group's thinking. We would still think the world is flat were it not for those early courageous explorers who proved the prevailing consensus otherwise. We would still think the earth was the center of the universe, convinced that this was the truth. This was the widespread belief held by the church and its followers during the Dark Ages. The consensus wrongly believed every heavenly body revolved around the earth. It was the brave men who thought independently, counter to the consensus at the time, and proved their convictions by bravely looking at the problem differently than the supposedly indisputable dogma offered by the church as the explanation. It's troubling in the 21st century that science once again relies on consensus, ignoring any dissenting views or alternate explanations, and punishing individuals who think counter to the ideas put forward by the herd. It is as if we are entering another dark and medieval time in society's ongoing and ever-changing cultural evolution that thwarts progress. The loss of individuality in society and individual thought is not an inevitable outcome. We don't have to go along to get along, but it could be a challenge to actively resist. It requires a conscious effort to preserve and celebrate diversity in thoughts, beliefs, and cultural practices. We need to start, implement, and encourage educational reforms that value creativity, critical thinking, and personalized individual learning paths for students. In addition, we need to promote media literacy and recognize and resist their manipulative content. Let's preserve cultural heritage and nurture environments where diversity is celebrated. Once accomplished, these changes can all serve as antidotes to the growing oppressive homogenization of thought. Changes need to be made if we ultimately desire a society that champions individuality and free thought, and that is vibrant, resilient, and capable of great innovation and progress. We all need to rethink the conclusions put forward by consensus. History has proven ideas emboldened by the consensus were wrong too many times. If we want to thrive as a global community, we need to promote and encourage individual thinking. It is not too late.